robe is importante. I got on my drama queen shirt today.
I see you,
You know.
sis. We late. We on CPT today, all because of my fault, but we here. We made
Well,
it.
life happens.
Now I'm hot. Like I wasn't hot before, but now
Yo,
I'm
quick
like,
change.
yes, trying to run and find something. I'm like, shoot, I'm hot as hell now.
Hey, quick
They didn't
change.
make me so hot. Like I'm
Come
sweating.
on, you popping on. I see the color from the shirt
You
coming
see
through
me
with the color from the
unapologetically.
earrings. You
Yes,
best be
they say black
unapologetic.
girls rock. Black girls rock. The black girls rock.
Because we do.
We do.
Have you seen the little memes and I guess it's not a meme, but the video clips from Instagram or TikTok where the girls are talking and they're like, they say black girls do too much.
I haven't seen
Because we do. we
I
got too much
haven't
personality. We got
seen it.
too much booty. We got too much. Or they
Look,
say extra. They say, because we are.
unapologetically, we do.
Absolutely.
We
We
are.
are. Yes, we are.
All facts. All facts. Hey, Uncle Gino.
Hey,
Look,
hey.
tell Dion I just done completely stole her aunt and uncle.
Oh,
They
they got gas a long time ago. Dion ain't got nothing to do with it.
that's definitely my aunt and uncle.
They
We are
got gas.
wait, producer is moving. Wait, no, stop. Like
It's too much headspace. It's like a rule. You can't have two. You know?
he coming in telling me I got too much headspace. I don't know what
Look,
this means.
he's trying to shape up that frame, girl. Let him do
I
his job.
guess, like coming in here, all of my friends. Well, everyone is drumping. Look, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. It's been a long week. Like today, I'm like all out of sorts with the day of the week. I almost forgot it was
It's
Wednesday.
hump day.
Yeah, it feel like getting over a hump. This is that's what it's called. That's why it's called Hump Day. But y'all, welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. We are a little bit late today. I spilled something on my shirt and it was not gonna work. And it was a white shirt. So it was like I kind of, I know we streaming from home, but I still gotta kind of look presentable. I can't look like I just fell out the bed.
It matters, sis. It matters.
Yes, it does. But it's just me and sis here today to have this conversation. But I'm hoping that we're going to end up revisiting this topic because I really want to hear from other people. And this topic came after just kind of sitting with myself about some things and talking to people in my world about some things. And it became very important for me for us to address trauma as in childhood and how it surfaces in our adult spaces each and every day and how we can work on getting past those childhood traumas because none of us are without those. Like none of us are unscathed from childhood trauma.
Talk about it.
Not none of us whatsoever. We all in some way, shape, or fashion have to do some sort of healing from our childhoods. And I think that is a very hard thing for us as adults if we haven't had the training, if we haven't had the guidance on how to deal with those things and not realizing that, hey, you doing this because, going to my sister's favorite, but why are you doing that? Well, you're doing this because this happened to you in childhood. And believe it or not, this behavior, this reaction, the way you process things, the way you meet other people in their spaces is based on things that you experience from childhood. And although we think we've gotten past some stuff, it takes for something to surface for you to realize, like, I really ain't gotten past that. I really ain't healed from that thing. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the childhood traumas, and we're going to talk about how we can get past those because we need to for our adult lives and so that we're not passing those on to our children. And so I know we've talked about this, kind of hinted at some things before, sis, when it came to childhood trauma. You know that for me, it's super important that I deal with my childhood trauma because I didn't want to, bring that into my parenting. But what's some childhood traumas that you are aware of that you may have that you may surface sometimes in your day-to-day life?
Man, to be honest, when it comes to childhood traumas, I mentioned this before. Well, first of all, I was over here just shouting when you was introducing because, amen, I say, let it be, speak the truth, shame the devil. We need to talk about it. Oh, we gonna talk about it because it's so important to talk about childhood traumas because literally literally, and we talk about this all the time in different ways. Our parents are our first teachers. They create the basis of normal for our lives. So I used this reference before, but if I'm teaching my son that 2 plus 2 is 6, his whole upbringing before he meet anybody else, before he walk into a classroom, he and his man know for a fact that 2 plus 2 is 6. And he get into the classroom and the teacher like, no, son, 2 plus 2 is 4. You gonna have to deprogram that child. Cause he knows and believes, cause his mama didn't taught him since he was born that 2 plus 2 is 6. So now everybody looking at him like he crazy. The teacher gonna have to struggle to deprogram that the 2 plus 2 is 6 because it's really 4. But that's what happens with parenting and trauma in our families at very early ages. That's exactly what happens. Our programming and our conceptualizing of normal and what that is comes from our surrounding family. So it's not just our parents, but our siblings, our uncles and aunts, all of our family structure and friends as well in that age really solidifies personality traits within us that molds into adulthood. Even like our voices in silent situations where we're going through certain things, most likely it's your parents' voice and how they talk to you in that situation is now how you talk to yourself. So this is the conversation right here when we're talking
And
trauma.
and not even just that, sis. Yes, absolutely to all of that. I also think that a lot of us grew up kind of knowing something wasn't right for us. How many of y'all out there grew up was like, when I grow up and I'm an adult, I'm not gonna do this, or I'm not gonna do this way with my children, because we grew up knowing that something about how they did certain things just didn't sit well with us, right? And sometimes if we would try to push back at that, the first thing you heard is don't be disrespectful now, or mind your place, or children are meant to stay in this spot, or to be seen and not heard, or they're not allowed to say anything, or because I said so. How many of us grew up here because I said so? Well, like, I'm not saying what what you're asking or telling me to do, I'm not going to do it. I'm just wondering what is behind that. Well, just because I said so without any explanation. So I
It's
think,
the but why
but
energy
the
that
but why? But
children
I
have.
think that that's
Let's not kill
generational
the
as
but
well.
why energy. That's very important.
What my point in that is that I think that when it comes to childhood trauma, even if we knew deep inside of us that something wasn't right about how our parents operated, they may didn't program us as much as they thought that they did. There were plenty of things growing up for me as a kid where I was kind of like, I don't understand the reasoning behind this. Or just then, how did I feel when my parents did this to me? How did this make
Right.
me feel when they did this? I didn't feel like I mattered. I didn't feel like a human being. I didn't feel like I could have a voice. I didn't feel like if I had something to say, it was important. So I think all of those things, in some way, we take those lessons into adulthood. Even if we're not silent, some of us may go to the opposite end of the spectrum where, we kind of like not gonna let anybody do this to us. So we bucking up real quick because I gotta put my foot down because all my life
I had to fight. Yeah.
had to
Or
fight.
even in the opposite realm, like with parents that were like really, really sheltered and like they like box their children in from reality. And then that's a trauma because they become adults and then they have to go out into reality, whether it be financially, and responsibility wise, or whether it be like dating and just freedom to explore and figure out who the heck you are and what you want to do. And so when they get out into the world, that causes trauma because now they're culture shock. They like, whoa, what is this? I gotta have a job. I gotta pay bills, or these people out here in relationships are crazy, and I don't know who, what, when, where, and why, and where to go. I don't know what I want because they never dated as a young person. Or you got those people, and I know everybody probably knows one from college, those real shelter kids that get some freedom in college and be the craziest ones.
Wow, out, wow, out like they ain't never been able to do nothing ever.
They
You
haven't. A
know?
lot of like their family, a lot of people is it may be hard to believe like when we look at mainstream today, but like some people are still very, very sheltered. So when they get that
Oh,
college freedom and parents ain't there hovering,
I definitely would have been one of them people. If and I think my parents kind of knew that a little bit. So my mom was like adamant that I couldn't go away for school. So while most of my friends were kind of like bon voyage, like see you later, I was at the community college. Now in hindsight, as an adult and then finishing my undergrad, I didn't have the student loans, I didn't have the debt
Lord, I
at
got
that
it.
time.
You want to
That
share it, sis? You can have some.
Trust
You
me,
can
I
have
have
it.
enough now because you remember I went and got other degrees and then had,
Several times you've been back. They
so
can't get me to go back.
now that's a whole different story. But I will say that that was one thing I'm super appreciative about my parents, is that they did push for me to do community college first. And in the moment, you feel like, oh, they just trying to rain on your parade, just don't want to let you go. But I did appreciate it. But once I finished, community college and I was trying to go away to school, it was like, nope, nope. And I think that deep down, my parents was afraid I was going to get out here in this freedom.
So you were a very sheltered child.
I wasn't so much sheltered because I grew up primarily out west. So I grew up in the city for the most part and moved out in my teen years to the suburbs. And so early teen years into to the suburbs, 12, 13. So, my older brother and I, we had to be latchkey kids for a large part of stuff. And, we walked everywhere. We rode the CTA, he and I by ourselves. So I wasn't sheltered. But these youngins that I've created, Lord.
That I created.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned um about them being sheltered, but I can say that when it comes to this generation, it's a little different now. Here's why. The kids in these generations have something that we didn't have that kind of prevents them from being completely sheltered. They have the internet, they have social media, they have all of these other ways of exposure to stuff that we didn't necessarily have like at our fingertips. So I think they are actually not as sheltered as we think because there's so much that they're seeing and they're being exposed to every day. So sometimes they're telling me that they know stuff where I'll be like, wait a minute, where did you get that from? Because we ain't talked about that yet. Like we haven't talked about it. Now we got to talk about it because now you done found some stuff I wasn't ready for you to find yet. So I think it's a little bit different for these kids, but I think for my generation, because you have to understand too, sis, you still, I know I'm 25, but
You 25, sis. I'm older than you.
you're technically not in my generation. We had a different level of exposure than the kids have now. So for my generation, latchkey kids, both parents worked. You had to very early on be able to get yourself to the bus, get yourself off the bus, get yourself in the house, make yourself a snack, get your homework done, get your chores done. Make sure you took that meat out the fridge so when mama came home, she can get to cooking. Don't forget to take that meat out or it's going to be a problem. So we kind of grew up with a different level of responsibility. And I think that some of the kids nowadays may have, and I know definitely that my kids don't have. So I wouldn't say that kind of got sidetracked. So let me get back here to the, talking about that. But even that in itself with being a latchkey kid, having your parents work all the time, having them not be able to show up for certain things is a childhood trauma. Even when it comes to being sheltered, maybe you had the parent that was sheltered, didn't let you experience anything. For me growing up, my childhood trauma, one of my biggest childhood traumas that even as an adult, I've been doing so much work on is that growing up, I didn't get to make a whole lot of decisions Like my mom was very like, this is what you're going to do because I said so. And this is what's best. So I kind of grew up second guessing my own decisions and myself a lot
I
of the
was just
time.
gonna ask you that. I was like, now how
So
did
when
it
I would actually
work
make a
out?
decision as an adult, I would still call my mom and be like, I was thinking about doing this. Like, what do you think? And if she didn't agree with what I was thinking, even if deep down I felt like this was what was best for me, I would let her opinion sway me because this was what she wanted me to do,
Right.
opposed to what I knew would be in my best interest for myself, all things considered. And I grew up with needing that validation or that encouragement or that yes from her, from my older brother, from my father at times. And so it made me unsure of myself a lot of times as an adult. And now that I'm getting more comfortable as I get closer to 40, because now, this year I'll be 39. So that means I'm at 40's door and I'm ringing the bell. And I'm like, hey, I'm outside. I'm outside. I'm
I'm
outside.
pulling up.
Pull up, um, I'm finding myself more and more digging my heels in the sand. Like, I don't need validation or approval from anybody, like from anyone. And I need to be comfortable with that. But I got to thinking about just how many other people may have had that similar childhood trauma, because you carry that into adulthood. So you may don't take those risks that you probably should take, because there are safe risks. And when you're growing up to be not so self-assured, you don't usually take any kind of risk at all. And then what are you losing out on? What things are you passing up? That one little yes to something could have been the yes you need for the big yes to something. But if you're overthinking, or if you're not accustomed to believing in your decisions, you can pretty much mess yourself up. You can trick yourself out of going further for something that you actually need. So that's what kind of sparked it for me this week. As I realized that even though I've done so much work with that, I got to a point where I'm like, I'm still kind of doing that. And how I
And
figured out.
that thing, because you
Mhm.
mentioned like how it can go the opposite way, and people be like, you know what, I'm not doing what my parents did. And even if in your mind you may even say it out loud, like, I'm not gonna do that, you'll find yourself doing it anyway because it's been embedded. It's a programming that you have to actively decode. Like, no, I'm not doing it, and figure out that you're doing it first, and then stop the pattern. I know for me, when going through the rites of passage program that I went through, I like deep dived into my life and just really with a fine tooth comb kind of going through everything. And I made a lot of revelations during that time about my life, about myself, about why I do what I do, and kind of why I am the way that I am. And one thing that I realized that has traumatized me from childhood, and when I say this, most people are like, you lie, is a diminishment of my voice and speaking up for myself. Now I talk all day long. Y'all know.
Advocating for yourself is
But
what you mean.
advocating for myself
Mhm.
is different. I will advocate for somebody else until I'm called home. Okay, like I have always supported people, protected people. I ain't for that bullying crap. Like I like in high school, elementary school, I've always been the person to speak up for other people. I've always been the person to talk. I've always been the person to answer questions in class. I've always used my voice. Again, I've been hosting since I was 15 years old, So I've always used my voice. But when it came to speaking up for myself in moments that I feel like it really mattered, I didn't. And so through that process, I had to figure out where that started for me. And I realized, so I'm the youngest of four. And being
Mhm.
the youngest of four,
Mhm.
one, I watched a lot. I watched my older siblings. I watched how they moved, things that they did. I was like, well, I know not to do that, or whatever. Or the things that they did well, I picked up. So I have a lot of them in me, and I'm grateful for that. But in particular, I had to realize that my sister, which y'all know, Carlisa, she has a powerful energy, and she has had a powerful energy since she was a baby. Like they got stories of her pulling Chanel down into the playpen. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jack and
Well,
Chip.
Chanel's the oldest. And
Chanel's the
then it's
oldest by years.
Martha.
You know what I'm saying? So like she pulling a big sister down. You know what I'm saying? Like so she's had a strong energy since conception, basically, since she got here on this plane of existence. And so me and her being the closest girls in age, so Chanel would always have her own room. My brother being the only boy, he would have his own room. But me and my sister, me and Carlisa, we would always share a room. You know, sometimes they have us dress alike. You know, we were the closest girls in age, right? But Carlisa being so strong-willed, I quickly adapted to dealing with her. And that basically meant fight all the time or just be quiet.
Right.
And I quickly learned to just be quiet. And so a lot of times when I'm in conflict situations, and this is how it rolls over into my adulthood, I'll just be quiet. Not that I'll sit and take things happening to me because I got to find the lines, okay? But in situations where I'm like, I can either fight or just walk away, I'm gonna walk away.
You're fight or flight.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I have to find the lines where I put my foot down. I'm not gonna take just anything. And I'm also not for none. Okay, because Carlisa is my big sister, and y'all ain't met my grandma, but Mary Nell, okay. She pistol packing. You feel me? All right.
She packing.
Old school. Okay.
Okay.
Listen, she great migration to Chicago. Okay, she from them country fields. Okay, she know how to work a bang bang. You feel me? So my grandma wasn't for none. All right.
Right.
So like I still have that energy. So don't come for me. But again, like being in such close proximity to her, I quickly realized because I didn't know where that came from, but I realized that that's exactly where it came from because I didn't want to fight every day of my life. I lived with her, like literally in the room. So if she's like, clean up this room, I'm like, if I say I didn't mess up this room, it's a fight now. You know what I'm saying? So I can either go there or just go clean up. So I'm like, I'm gonna go clean up. Ain't nobody got time for this. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know what I'm saying? So those are my options. So that rolls over into my adulthood, but that also probably is why I go so hard to stand up for other people.
Because you're being the voice. It's so much easier, which is the weirdest thing ever, for us to advocate and stand up for somebody else before we speak up for ourselves. And it took me a long time to realize that being able to advocate for me also makes me a stronger advocate for others.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fiercer when I'm advocating for both of us. Like that saying that nobody wants more for you than they want for themselves. Like you can't genuinely go and be an activist for someone when you're unwilling to be an activist for yourself. And so I had to really kind of get comfortable with speaking up and having a voice because I suffered from the same thing at times. It's weird because as a teenager, I was just like, you know what? I'm saying how I feel and that's it. So it caused a lot of havoc. And the first thing, in that age is like teenagers, bad mouthing, think that they grown, disrespectful. But really, I was just like, I have feelings and I'm tired.
And there's a balance in that because I feel like we have to aid our young people in finding their voice and giving them opportunity to speak how they feel. Because I've worked and taught young people for a very long time, and that's their number one gripe. It's like, I feel like I am not seen. I feel like I am not heard. I feel like I don't have a say so over my own life. I feel like that's their number one. Like every year I would teach, and that would be the number one thing. They're like, I feel like I'm just here. And that is what causes like the rebellious teen stuff because they like, okay, well, I'm gonna do what I want at this table.
That's what causes violence. That's what causes other, kids to lose the humanity in themselves and to see it in others because it's like, I don't matter, so you don't get to matter either. Or I'm not important, so then you're not important either. And I feel like we really absolutely have to deal with that because there's a lot of resentment and anger that follows. And then we carry that into adulthood. So then when we're out here trying to date, which is one of the things I always tell people. When I was giving folks, when people ask me for marital advice, I started saying, it's a little bit mad. make sure you guys always communicate. You know, the very surface stuff. Now be like, listen, you need to talk about finances. You need to talk about credit. You need to talk about, especially and importantly, how the two of you were raised. What were your childhoods like?
That
What,
family background, babe.
you have to know that,
How
and
you
you
treat your mama? Do you like her?
have,
Like, what's up? I
and
need to
even
know.
just bigger than that, how did you grow up feeling? Did you learn how to were you nurtured? That's a huge thing. Did you feel like you received nurture? Did you feel like you had a purpose and a voice? Did you feel like you were able to express yourself? Were your parents active in your life? Were they not? Because that's another thing too. If you have an absentee parent, that means you're going to have a void in some way. And so,
Mhm.
what is it like to have that absentee parent there? Like, are you healing from that? Are you actively working on that? Because I don't care what anybody says, when you have a parent, no matter who else is in your world, if you have a parent that's not involved in your life, it absolutely affects you. There's no way that it's not going to affect you. There's no way that it's not going to surface in some way in your adult life. Whether that's how you date, because that influences like how you date, who you date, what your type is like, how you approach relationships, like all of that, like how you see yourself, all of those things are super important. So I always tell people, you got to know how that person grew up, know what
Yeah.
childhood traumas they have.
And
Um,
that needs to be like in teen dating 101.
yeah,
That's like before you get into a committed relationship, well, then it what you need to
you
know
gotta
this.
know.
And then also you need to know yourself.
Mm,
And so like for me, that trauma, and then I also didn't have my father in my life. So my mother and my father got divorced like right after I was born. So again, I'm the youngest of four, so they were together since high school, and then right after I was born, they got divorced. I'm really grateful for that though, because I'm not sure how life would have turned out if he stayed. But and my
that,
mama didn't be like, nah, bro, I got to go. But because of that, I also did not consistently see, and my mother got remarried later on when I was maybe like in middle school, high school, they were together. But I didn't have that father figure on a present basis consistently in my life. Now I had male mentors from high school up. I had really great teachers, and other like family members and family friends that were dope. But it wasn't, like I said, consistent. It was like when I see you, you awesome. That's about it. So I also did not see what a representation of that father in your life was supposed to do, or that good man in your life, that partner in your life was supposed to do. Because to be honest, my stepfather wasn't all that great either.
mm,
So it was like I did not see what they were supposed to do, how they were, how my mother was supposed to be treated well, and all of those other things. And I think that played a role in the relationship, my ex-husband. And I also think not speaking up when I should have played a huge role in that also. And so when it came to that situation, it was things that was happening from the beginning that I kept throwing off. I was like, oh, I could say something, but nah, I ain't gonna say nothing. You know what I'm saying? That same little girl
and it
energy.
was more than just picking your battles, which is something you absolutely have to do in
Right,
a
because it's a
relationship.
difference. It
It's a
goes back to
difference,
like that balance. It's like,
right?
okay, that's very much so true, but some things you have to say. Now, again, it wasn't the fact of just talking and communicating, because I feel like we talked about everything from exes to what life looked like, everything. We talked about everything for the most part, but things would happen, and I knew in my heart and my mind that I need to say something about this, or this ain't sitting well with me, and I always blew it off. And of course, that adds up and it leads to bigger things. And that's what happened. And also that aspect of not fully knowing what that looks like, to have that man show up and be a true partner, and
Mm,
to have, what I'm saying. So I
mhm,
think those two things for me were the biggest traumas that I'm currently now healing from. One is to heal my throat chakra, to say no when I need to say no, to let people know at the door exactly what it is and what it ain't. You know what I'm saying? And so that's
That's a big one though, sis. Like, I need you to give yourself a moment to acknowledge that you're doing that, because that one in itself, is huge because that's one of the leading things that we're taught as kids is to be quiet. Like you have to be quiet. You can't say this. And as women, we're taught as Black women that we have to kind of grit our teeth together and bear through it. Like, we
And
have to
no, and
endure.
that's
And
a
no,
lie. A
no,
lie
no.
before God, as they would say.
Yeah, because ain't nowhere in no scripture that says that. Like,
I missed it.
no
What
place,
book, what
no place.
verse? Okay.
No place are
Um,
you supposed to be misused and abused. So I want you to sit with that and give yourself some credit for that because that's a huge one.
and that had me in relationships that I didn't need to be in. Not necessarily like bad or toxic relationships, just relationships I wasn't supposed to be in. And we had a whole show on this. It was like people are great people, but they might not be your person. That person could be amazing for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? They can be nice, but that doesn't mean that that's your person. And so I was in a lot of situations like that just because people wanted to date me, and I was just like, okay. And I would go along with it, you know what I'm saying, knowing that I may not have felt as strongly and different things like that. But again, I didn't want to hurt nobody's feelings. I didn't really want to say what I needed to say. I'm like, it's okay,
Right.
and I'm not doing that anymore. It's a point where you mentioned you can't advocate for someone else until you advocate for yourself type of situation. That's the same thing with self-love and self-care. It's like, no, I love me. And because I love me, I'm gonna love you too. You know what I'm saying? And I know also what loving me feels like and look like. And if you can't do that, then we can't be together. And so really standing on those grounds and speaking up for those things as well. And I'm also learning self-care and what that looks like for me because it's different for everybody. And I think a trauma that a lot of Black women specifically, and actually Black men, Black people, period, a trauma that we darn near all have. I think this new generation of parenting is kind of stepping it up a bit. I've seen it. It's self-care. We don't know what self-care is because we didn't see our parents practice self-care, not our fathers, not our mothers, not aunties either. So we just get up, we go to work, we deal with the kids or whatever else we need to deal with. We deal with our bosses or whoever else we need to deal with, our spouses and whoever else we need to deal with, and we do the same thing tomorrow. We're gonna have burnout. We're gonna be ready to jump off somebody's building. We still have to enjoy life. We still have to pour into ourselves. We need our time with our girls or our guys. Like that is stuff that's needed. And so I think as parents now to kind of negate that trauma in particular because it's passed down because we think a lot of therapy, like we thought those things were luxuries. Like we talked about massages on the last show.
And I think that that's something going back to me saying like it was some things as a kid I saw and it was just like this can't be right. And that was one of the biggest things for me. I will say that my thought process on it wasn't 100% correct because my thought process was don't have no children, don't get married. Like that's self-care. Like don't do it to yourself because listen, don't do it because my mama seemed unhappy. She seemed stressed all the time. She was tired all the time. I would see them like go out and do things. Sometimes you would go and spend the night out, so you know that they were without kids, but you didn't really know what they did without
Right.
kids.
You just worry about what you was doing wherever
right.
you was.
So you really didn't actually see active self-caring. And so for me, seeing my mom be frustrated to see her not really smiling as much, it was like, oh shoot, I don't need no family. I just need to worry about me and just go and do my thing. And it took me some growing to realize it wasn't necessarily that. And then once I started stepping into roles like being a mom, being a wife, being all of these other things, I'm constantly still reminding myself, but I'm also now making sure I talk to the kids about that. So when I'm going to get my nails done like clockwork, I don't play about my nail appointment.
You do not.
I don't play about my nail appointment. Let me tell you, my nail girl is leaving me. I got one more visit.
Oh no, where's she going?
I'm proud of her though.
You've been going to her forever.
And she's gonna be a nurse. So I'm like, I can't even be mad because I'm so excited for her and I'm just so happy for her. I'm like, girl, go and get this money. And she feels terrible. She's like, I might try to do something. I was like, no, you go and you focus on your career. I'm just gonna have regular paint for a while till I figure this thing out. Until I find me somebody that can, keep me jazzy like I
Girl,
want
she wasn't
to be.
supposed to be no girl. She was supposed to open up her own little nail salon.
Well, for some people, even though they enjoy things and they're passionate about it, it's okay for them to be passionate about other stuff, and the world needs her. So I'm like, hey, we need nurses. She's a good girl. She has a good spirit. I know she's going to take care. She's a sweet girl. So I'm like, hey, who don't need that? I know it's been plenty of times I've been in the healthcare system and had a mean nurse or two, and I'd be like, oh, you so don't need this job. Your bedside manner is horrible.
Baby, who
So
trained
she's
you?
going right. So she's gonna go and she's gonna make a difference. And I'm like, I'm be sad, but I'm also proud. So I'm just super excited for her.
That's
But
good.
I don't play about my nails. And I had to go early this week. It wasn't supposed to be to the weekend, but she's like, I got a test and I'm gonna have to do your nails early. I'll be there, no problem, no problem. Because that's
Right now? You need me to come right now?
that is my she told me. I said, well, let me make sure I punch in early for work so I can get off by time you need me to come. Like, that's my self-care. And now I'm noticing that Naraya is the same way. Now she's like, yeah, it's not time for my nail appointment. Noted, let me go. But she feels good. Like, I'm noticing her. Even if she just sit in the house, she go put her lipstick on. I'd be like, that's her mama's child, because there's a plenty of days.
Nails and lips. That's no mama's child, okay?
I
I'm
said,
telling you, our parents is our first teachers.
but I didn't get to see my mom doing a lot of that. I saw her having all of these acts of service, and it didn't seem like they were necessarily for her. I see her doing self-care more now than ever. Like, once we got grown and stuff
Right. I
like
was just
that.
like, her kids grown. She like, I got
I
time
would
now.
say she started to self-care where they started traveling and just kind of like when I was in high school. So once I got to high school and my brother got to college, when he would come home, they would be like, oh, we gonna be gone for about 2 weeks. Y'all on y'all own. Be like, but what? Okay, well, but that's when they started kind of focusing on them and doing their thing. And I feel like that's a big mistake for us as a community. We shouldn't wait until our kids are grown, because our kids need us to self-care while they're little. Because when I'm not self-caring,
So they can learn it, and so we ain't ready to choke them up.
listen, that's the big part. Yes, they can learn it, but especially so, we have patience. And I think that when we aren't laughing, we aren't living life and having a good time, it's so much harder for us to exhibit patience for each other. Because when I'm miserable, misery loves company, right? Yeah. Yeah. So we have to start really talking about those things and addressing those things in our childhood, so that we're not making the same mistakes. To your point a minute ago, you brought up your dad being absent. For me, I grew up with my father, who is all of my father. Like, he couldn't be any more my father than if he produced me himself. He's been taking care of me since I was young. However, knowing that I had a biological parent that wasn't really active and wasn't really together to be there for me, you still kind of have that void. It just wasn't as grand for me as like my siblings and stuff, but I still turned out to be okay. But I do have to acknowledge that for a point, I still was very angry about that. Like, I still was like, how could, I had a whole man that loved me and he didn't create me. How could you have someone that can't shape
You
up?
did create me, and you can't even get it together.
Right. It's like, what is like, I couldn't understand it, right? But then when I became a parent, I had to start to work on that. But especially when I had my son, when I had Kyron,
Yeah.
it's like, whatever ill feelings I have about him or any other male that may have crossed paths in my life, I have to heal past that, because we don't realize how much we start to manifest that in how we love our sons, whether we're not intending to do it or we're just trying to fill the void. Sometimes, you end up making them feel less than who they should be or who they should feel like as boys. And then sometimes you rely on them way more than you should as a boy to kind of fill that void. So I had to be very conscious of whatever voids, whatever hardships I had with men and fix that before he came along. Because I was like, he will not be the kid that feels the void. I knew I wasn't going to mistreat him, but I didn't want to have him feeling responsible for me either. Like, some moms turn their sons like essentially into like a husband. He becomes the companion. He
Right.
becomes the person that they didn't have in whatever male relationships they had. And I said, even though I'm with his father and we're together, I still don't want that to ever be a factor for me. So let me deal with whatever things I have unresolved when it comes to men. So I'm not transitioning that. And that is a super important thing that we don't realize too. Like if we don't deal with that trauma, it's gonna surface one way or another, whether it surfaces in avoiding having a family altogether because you're afraid of what it will evolve, or whether you have a family and they become burdened with your troubles, with your trauma, or whether you love on them too hard or become an overprotective parent. Overprotective parents are products of some sort of trauma that they experienced in their
That's
lives,
why they're so
and
protective.
that's why they're so protective. But
Mhm.
it's like I know that I've been known to be a overprotective mom, but that was because I knew what could happen. So it was like, I'm not gonna have my babies in certain situations if it means that it's gonna be a detriment to them. So when we're not in tune with whatever childhood traumas that we went through, we are doomed to repeat them, and our
Yeah.
children are doomed to repeat them, and so on and so on. And I just think that we
You know
need
what's
to like,
another trauma too?
what's that,
That I
sis?
think that kind of floats under the radar when we talk about overprotective parents and different things like that. Not necessarily overprotective parents like, oh, you can't do this, don't do that. But it's the subtle fears that we instill in our children that manifest in adulthood and over time. It's subtle fears. And I noticed this with my son, and it's really interesting with my baby because I just want this thing to be over so I could just have him outside doing kid stuff. I want to put him in karate and swimming lessons. I want him to do things and experience and explore and have friends. Because
Right.
he's a quarantine baby. He's been in quarantine since he was 1. He's about to be 4. Like his whole life he was 1. I was looking at we did the Don't Rush challenge back in like 2020, and I was looking like, dang, he was a baby. He was
He's a
1.
baby. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't even
Yeah.
2 yet. And so like, and he's about to be 4 in a couple months. And it's like his whole life has been just in this house. And so I try to be mindful of the things that I'm doing and the things that I'm saying, and not and giving him the space to make his own decisions and choices. And I always talk to him about his choices and his decisions will dictate what happens, and he has to be able to deal with the consequences. I preach that to him. But then I also find myself like trying to do things for him, and I actively have to be like, no,
Back up.
even if he gets it wrong, let him
Mm-hmm.
do it. And I love that I've instilled in him enough confidence for him to tell me no. He'll turn around and be like, "Ma," and I'll be like, "You right,
Go and do your thing.
you got it,
How
you
many
right."
times did that happen to you growing up? And again, that goes back to me saying, like, I was a second guesser of anything. I would know the answer. I would know what would be the best for me. But because I had for so long people telling me what's best for me, I had this hard thing of trusting my own self with decisions. And it took for something to happen where I kind of went against what I really wanted to do about something and what felt good to me to do. And then I was like, now see, I went against this because
And I
I was
shouldn't have done
more
it.
looking for, and I realized I shouldn't have done it. So, like, giving your kids the space to make those mistakes where they have you as a protective netting.
Yeah, in a safe
We gonna
space.
Gerard's Geronimo's marshmallow pit. That's what we need to
Yes,
be.
the
Like,
marshmallow pit. Shout out
we
to
need to be the
Geronimo.
marshmallow pit for our kids, where we're
Yes.
giving them the space to make those mistakes, but they're in the comfort of our protection still, because we can still help them, or they haven't made a mistake so grand that it alters their life at that point when they're 3 or 4 years
And
old.
I think the thing too is don't be afraid of making a mistake. And I try to check him with that a
Yeah.
lot of times too, because he's like he doesn't even want to try. And I'm like, even if you get it wrong, at least you try. Like, you have to try. So one of our things is try again. Even if you get it wrong, try again, try in a different way. So it's like you have to try. And we went to the park. And again, he's been in quarantine since he was 1, and he's about to be 4. So my thing was, okay, so normally we've been in the house, ain't no park, ain't no playground. He would go with his dad because his dad's like, take him to the park. So we would go for walks in the spring and in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so there's a park not too far from our house. And one day he wanted to go the long way, which was like past the park. So I'm like, oh, he's going to see this playground. He's going to go to the playground, Lord. We're going to have to go play to the playground. So I don't want to tell him no. So sure enough, we walked that way and he see the playground. And he like, oh, like he wanted to go. So I'm like, okay, I got hands out of tassel. We be all right. So we go to the playground. Speaking of him, here he is.
He putting his 2 cents in. He making sure you get
right. He like, you talking about me, tell the story right. Okay.
Correct. I hear you, Jaleel. I hear you.
We go to the playground and I had to coach him through everything. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a thing and I can't have this. I don't want him afraid to live. He's like, he didn't want to get on the slide and he didn't want to do certain things. And I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. Just really encouraging him and like pumping him up to the point where he did it. There he is.
Welcome to the show.
Say hello.
Hey, do you have any advice on childhood trauma?
He said, You got advice for childhood trauma? Yep. Okay.
What's your advice
as parents to be better parents? What can we do?
We can paint.
We can paint?
Yeah, and color.
And color?
Yeah.
That's good advice, Jaleel. I actually color all the time. Thank you for that, sir. Do you hardly hear y'all on We Gon Talk?
We can paint.
That's Nelly Battles.
That is Nelly Battles. He's also a reader.
I see that.
My little guy reads at a first grade level, and I'm really proud of that.
Oh, yay! That's a testament to how much work you're doing with him, Mom.
Yes. So I try my best not to be a traumatic parent, but I know sometimes I am. I'm just gonna be honest. Yeah. But when I catch myself in those moments, I always make sure that I apologize and we sit down and talk about what just happened. Even when he makes a decision that he shouldn't have made, which lends him to the corner or a timeout, we talk about it before.
And then I got the timeout of my like Monopoly.
Oh,
you like Monopoly?
There's a timeout in his Monopoly Discovery. Instead of going to jail, you go to timeout.
Yeah.
Because his finger sucks.
Is what?
Because the finger pointed that way.
Oh, because the finger pointed that way. Mm-hmm. Until you
go to the timeout.
That's what it does.
Well, I can try and get you out next time, Jaleel. You get one phone call, okay? He like, what?
Right. But, talking it through, I think, and then showing them that you made a mistake when you made a mistake, I think that's very helpful in like killing a lot of the trauma, because it's you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be perfect as an adult. You're going to make mistakes. And I think the fear of making mistakes is a huge trauma that we all have from childhood, because a lot of times when we made mistakes, we were reprimanded, sometimes harshly, for just making childhood mistakes. And that's when you're supposed to experiment and do things. So if he does something that he's not necessarily supposed to do, we just talk about the choices and decisions he made. And we talk through the consequences of those decisions. And if I do something that I wouldn't have wanted to do, I talk to him about how I'm sorry and how next time I'm going to be better and I'm going to make better choices and decisions. And so I think
to be able to do that. I don't think we do that enough. And I think that also creates a lot of childhood trauma, is that our parents didn't like to apologize about stuff. And I don't even think that that's necessarily, I don't want us to stay stuck in the fact that our parents didn't apologize. I think that we have to kind of learn. Did I lose you, sis? Did Jaleel say enough?
No, I was just exiting him off my lap.
Jaleel was like, enough of this. Even though
I
your
was like,
childhood
okay,
trauma.
now, baby, scoot, scoot. You made your appearance.
But I feel like a lot. I know for me, I finally have gotten to a point where I don't expect for my parents to apologize for anything they did in their parenting back then. I know that my parents did the best that they could in whatever scope that they had based on
That
what
part.
my grandparents did, et cetera, et cetera. So I am to the point where I am not angry about some of the things that my parents did. I think when I do get upset or there's an issue, it's more so because some of those things still kind of follow into adulthood. So, like, even though I feel like I've set my boundaries where I'm an adult now and I'm comfortable on making my own decisions. I don't need your approval. Ever so often, my mom be like, well, I feel like you should. Well, thank you so much for your opinion, but it is not necessary. And I would like for you to stop.
And it will not change my decision. But thank
It's
you
not going to make
for
me change
sharing.
my decision. Right. Thank you for
Thank you
sharing.
so much
So
for
I
sharing.
get more frustrated now in adulthood where I'm still seeing that it's difficult for that chain to be broken, where there's still more so my mom will still kind of be like, well, I'm still your mom. I can, yeah, but I'm also an adult.
I'm like, you
And
can still say it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
or
Thank you.
it's gonna have any weight on how I
Right.
feel at this juncture in my life, right?
But if you feel
And
like you
so
just need to, go right ahead.
exactly. And I feel like becoming a parent also makes me appreciate the fact that I may make mistakes. I'm making mistakes. I'm not perfect. I do my best to correct when I have an error in judgment as a parent, but I make them all the same. And so making sure that when I do make that mistake, I recenter. I try to learn from it and be different. I'm sure many a sessions, each of my kids have vented to the therapist about me as a parent.
But
Maybe
I
they
think
said
also
something.
that's just being a kid. We're gonna always have problems because they not letting us do what we want to do when we want to do it. Like every parent,
Right.
we gonna always have a problem. But I think also when we look back, we see the good and what our parents did. Like you were saying, I'm so happy they didn't send me right off to college.
Girl, because I was
But I
hot.
know you was mad, like you
Oh,
wanted to
sis,
go.
you haven't any clue. I think one of my best friends, I went to her house to help her pack up the rest of her stuff to go to NIU. And I was gonna go with them to drop her off at school. Even my mom was like, "Nope, you don't need to go with her parents." I done been somewhere everywhere else with her parents, but I think my mom was like, "I don't need you going to get no ideas because your
Right, you ain't
baby's
gonna come
going up
back.
the
You gonna be
street."
down in NIU.
Up the street. And I was hot because, you know, the community college in my area, we called it Proviso North because I went to Proviso West, you had East, and then the community college was Proviso North. It was like high school. Like nobody wanted to go to Proviso North. Nobody wanted to go to community college. But I will say, I started to feel better real quick. I say by second semester when I started seeing some very familiar faces. And I was like, wait a minute. Now what you doing back here? What you at? So I said, yeah, I gotta come home. I'm on academic probation. Or they went and had that freedom that we talked about
Mhm.
and ended up there.
Right
And
back.
then, and not just that, when I finished my undergrad and I was talking to my peers and they were like, man, I owe so much money. And I hadn't taken out any student loans really at that time. Like, I think I had like one little small private loan where I wanted to do an extra class to try and get done quicker. And I took that out because my parents was like, I'm not paying for it. You just have to do an extra semester. I was like, I want to be done with it. So I ended up getting a private loan to pay for some extra classes to try to wrap things up. But other than that, I didn't have any student loans with my undergrad. And I was listening to my friends talk about how much they owe. And I was like, man, that was right. And I got the chance to tell
Yo,
my
sis,
parents,
my
thank you.
undergrad, I'm at like 60.
See, and I ain't started racking up the dough until I decided to get it in my mind that I needed to educate myself even higher.
Yeah, they can't give me that. You can't make me. I'm not going. I'm
and I want to go higher, but I'm gonna need something to do that. I'm
Full
looking at
rides is
look.
what is needed. That's
I'm
all.
not taking out another loan.
Maybe they can't make me go back. I'm not going back. But you know, one thing actually to just speak to Jalil's point on what we can do as and to
Paint
negate
and
the
color.
trauma in parenting, coloring and painting. Okay. One, I watched this video. I shared it to my page. I'll share it to the We Gonna Talk group as well. But I literally cried watching this video. You may have seen it. I think I may have sent it to you. But it was just some kids and they had the kids come through and they
Yeah.
had the parents in the room, and so the parents was watching and listening, and the kids, they just asking the kids questions like, so what do you like to do for fun? And they like, I like to do this and this and this. And they like, okay, when you play, because most of them said they play for fun. They play. And they like, what do you play? And who do you play with? And they like, most of them was saying they typically play by themselves. One little boy said I guess they live too far from his friends, and another little boy said all his siblings are younger. So most of them, they play by themselves. Mm-hmm. And so they asked, why don't you play with your parents, your mom or your dad? And then they were just like, they're too busy. Dad's always working. Even when he say he will, he doesn't, and just like, and the parents are listening and they're getting emotional. And I'm getting emotional. And so by the end of it, they bring out this like cart of toys, right? And board games and stuff. And they're like, you want to play with these toys? And all the kids like, yeah, I want to play. Can I play? I want to play. And so they're like, okay, there's a catch. The only way we'll let you play is if your parents will come and play with you. And so they had to plead to their parents to come and play. And the parents are balling at this point. I'm balling at this point. And so they're basically like, please, I'll be good. I'll listen. I'll clean my room. I'll do my homework. Please.
That was the part that got me, is the please and what they were trying to say or what they felt like they needed to say to make their parents want to be there with them. And that was what was heartbreaking for me. So I was already like, oh, they play by themselves. But, kids often do. But then it was like when it was, I want to play with my parents, but they're not here. And when they started begging them and saying, I'll be good. I won't get in any trouble. I'll clean my room. I'll do this. And I was like, okay. Why do they feel like they have to say that stuff to get
they gotta like beg and plead, and then they like lied to the kids and was like, okay, the parents was listening and crying. They were like, okay, the parents aren't coming, they're not gonna come. And so they were so sad. They were like, why aren't they coming? He's not coming, or she's not coming. And then like they surprised them, and then the parents popped up behind them, and one boy was like, you lied to me.
That video, when you sent it, I was like, I knew one where you were coming from when you sent it, because that's a conversation we have all the time. And then two, it was just like, it made me feel good because I was one of them kids. Like, I knew my parents had to work. It was necessary that they had to work. So, by the time my mom, especially when I was about their age, my mother wasn't a driver at the time. So her whole transportation was on public transit. So that adds another like hour to two to your commute every single day. By the time she come home, she tried to get dinner done so we could have something to eat. And that was tired. Or just remember when it was times where she couldn't make it to an assembly in the middle of the day, or she couldn't chaperone for trips. So for me with my kids, like that was important. It was a must. Like I was
the class mom.
Listen, I didn't miss assemblies. I didn't miss reading to the class. I didn't miss room parties. I was a room mom for every single room party. One day I was a little late because I overslept, because at the time I was working overnight. And I was like, man, I just need to get 2 hours, and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to make goodie bags. So I was that parent. Like, I made goodie bags for the kids, all of that stuff. Like, just 2 hours of sleep before I could make these goodie bags and get to their room parties in time. And I would go to both of their room parties. So I would go to one kid's party first and then to the other ones, and make sure that they always had stuff. But one day, I was that mama. That day, I overslept. So I woke up and I was trying to rush to throw these party favors together. And I ended up getting there just in time to pop into their classrooms. But I went to Naraya's class first. And then next thing I know, somebody brings Kyra into the class because Kyron was balling. He had to be like in second grade at this time. He was like second or third grade. When I say that he was uncontrollably sobbing because he thought something had happened to me. He's like,
He's like, Mama always hears something wrong.
she ain't gonna miss no room.
No,
party.
check on her. Check on her, Mama.
So he wasn't mad. He was terrified because he knew I'm not gonna miss the room party. And when they brought him to Naraya's class, trying to see if she could calm him, he saw I was in there, and so he was like, "I thought something happened to you." I was like, "I was a little late. I ain't had no sleep, but I'm here." So I went and finished out and handed out his stuff, and then later that day, he was like, "You're the best mommy ever. I know you're tired," and that was like, and girl, when I say I was tired, sis, I was tired. I had the worst night at work. I was exhausted, but it was like, I am not going to miss these kids' room parties because I felt like that. When I would want my mom to come or my father to come, they couldn't. And I knew it wasn't their fault because, of course, it was more important for them to be working and they only had a certain amount of days off. And those days needed to be used in case somebody was sick or it was an emergency. But I knew what that felt like. So I was like, whatever job I have, if I stayed at home for the longest until both kids was in school. And then when I went back into the workforce, I was like, man, I don't really want to work overnight, but I need to be able to show up for my kids. I need to be able to be in the crowd if they are reciting a poem. Like, we didn't miss anything. Every recital, every assembly, every party, every parents' day to school. If a job has a problem with it, then it was just going to be like, you're replaceable, but this time isn't replaceable. I needed them to know that they mattered like that because I would look at those faces every year, no matter how old the kids got. If a parent didn't show up for parent to school day, there was a kid disappointed and crying. It was so many times where I would be like, well, I'm not your mom, but I've been knowing you since she was little. Can I represent you today too? Can I include you or do stuff with you too? Because, I knew that somewhere their parent was at work, also sad, nor recognized that they couldn't be there. And then the kid doesn't quite understand that. And I would be like, trust me, I'm a mom. And it's not always easy. And your mom is trying to make sure you have this, this, and this. But I'm saying that even that is a childhood trauma. And if we don't even address those things, the messages that we tell ourselves when stuff like that happens are more toxic than the actual reasons of why that person wasn't there. So for that kid, it's my parent didn't show up for me because they didn't care. But your parent didn't show up for you because they do care. They're showing up for you in a different way by making sure that
they food and lights in the household and heat. And
that part. So I became more, even though I never fought with my parents as a kid, I just longed to have them there. Being in that situation really made me appreciate more what it must have been like from their perspective. But as a kid, you don't understand that. And how many kids, grew up mad at the world because nobody showed up for them. Nobody was at their game or at their, recital or anything like that. And so
I think that's another reason why village is so important. It truly takes a village to raise a child. And I think as parents, to kind of negate that trauma, we need to map out some things. And, I know that everybody doesn't have a huge support system, or some people don't have a support system at all. And blessings to anyone who's going through that. Create your tribe if you don't have one, like friends. Like, I know for me, I was really blessed to be pregnant with my best friend, with Dion. We had our sons 2 months apart. So Jaleel is 2 months older than her son. And then our other sister, Tatiana, her son was a year older than our sons. And then they both had girls together. And then Tatiana has another. So now it's 3 boys and 3 girls. And so there's a tribe.
Wait a minute, I forgot.
She had another girl. Yeah.
She not announced that she was expecting. She announced that on the show. And time just be rolling. Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations, Tatiana. That is amazing. I hope baby is healthy.
Baby number 3. Baby is healthy. Baby is home. Baby is beautiful. Gosh. So cute. She just, all 3 of them kids look just like her. They just, I
Must
don't
be
look like her
nice.
twins. She just got triplets. It's just
Must
her
be
and
nice.
her
If
babies.
another person tell me that my offspring don't look like me, we gonna fight. Because I really believe that they
Her
look
babies
like me
got her
when I was
face.
kids.
Baruch ain't had nothing to do with that. Them is her baby.
Well, I must be nice. I'm so tired of people telling me I was just an incubator because Kyron looks like me when I was his age, and Naraya looks like me when I was her age. If we gonna be technical
So, but
now,
just walk around with the same age pictures and just
I
correct
got.
people.
Don't worry, I got collages for that. I show
Correct people.
collages. I'll be like, let me show you. When people be like, oh, they look just like Robert. Hold on, let me get my
Wait a second. I got
gallery out.
receipts.
Let
I
me
got
find this collage.
receipts.
Let me show you. Cause no. But you were saying, sis, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying to have that tribe is very important. Family, yes, but if not, even if not family, people and friends that you can truly trust. Like for instance, with Dion, when she went back to school, she had to go back to work once they went back into the classroom, and she wasn't sure what she was going to do. So I homeschooled Mason. She would drop him off in the morning on her way to work. I would homeschool and feed and nap and play right along with Jaleel, and she'd come get him after she get off work. And that's what we did for a few months. And so like creating that tribe and making sure you have people that you can truly trust with your children is a beautiful thing. That they can show up when you can't. You know what I'm saying? For me, with my baby, when I started working, 3 months after, maternity leave ain't that long. 3 months after I went back to work and I was working full time, I was really blessed to have my mother and Carlisa. Carlisa was working, Carlisa be busy, purple ribbon chef and everything else, cooking and catering, and she still had my little baby. She would pick him up for me when I got to work because she lived closer to my job. By the time I was getting off work, she was outside. We was just switching car seats. You know what I'm saying? And I was really grateful because I didn't want him to be in daycare. I wasn't sure what that would be like. So for him to be with family was really important to me. So when I couldn't be there, I knew that either Carlisa or my mother could be. And that was really important to me. So having that tribe so I can make sure and that we all can make sure that someone that we trust and support us and support our children can be there for them. I think that's the part we should be mindful of, because yes, we got to work. Yes, we got to pay these bills. Yes, we have to do what we have to do. But we can make sure that someone that loves and support that child can be there. I think that's
That was me.
what's really
I'm
important.
so glad that I had the opportunity to do that. I got to do that for not for Naraya. Naraya was the only one out of all between Kyron and my two nieces that went to daycare 3 months. She went to daycare at 3 months because I needed to go back to work. Like you said, maternity leave is 12 weeks. That's it. And you
Right.
like to go
All you
back
get.
in. But I did go part time, and then when I went back to school, I was working almost full time and then part time as well. I was doing like 30 hours a week, 30 to 32 sometime hours a week, and then I had a full time class schedule in the evening once I went back to school to finish up my undergrad. And so she still had to kind of go to daycare during the day. But I say when she was about 2, once I finished school and stuff, after that, not soon after that, my niece was on the way, and I was like, hey, I'm already not working. Why don't I just keep her? That way we don't have to put her in daycare or whatever. And so that's what I did. And I was able to do that for her. And then Kyron came a year later. So I had Kyron, then I had my youngest niece where she stayed with me until she was almost 2. Is when she finally went to daycare. And I'm grateful that I had that time because my brother and sister didn't have to worry. They knew that they were in good care. I didn't have to worry because
You got to bond with all your babies.
I got to bond with all my babies. I got to have an active role in them growing up, and they know they TT. They know they TT love them, and that's what was super important for me. And I wish that we had more spaces and more people had that type of village that we speak about.
Yeah.
That's going to cause trauma in itself. I know that for my mom, her village was small. So for when I became a mom, she was so, even knowing that she was, she tried to say she wasn't gonna help out and do certain stuff, but once that baby came along,
It'd be different door.
listen, she got on my nerve. Oh my, she's got on my nerve. Like she was not happy the both times when I got pregnant because it wasn't the best timing. But as soon as Mariah came, she would be like, and she
Because
was gonna
everything
be,
else go out the window when the baby actually get here.
I
You
was
can
like,
front for 9 months, but as soon as
look,
that baby get here, I ain't gonna do
she
none of
would
that.
come in my room and be like, "Oh, she don't have to sleep in here." What? No, give me the baby. Like she would take her away, and it was like, wait a minute now. You said now you coming in here and you want her all
Now
the
you're
time.
kidnapping kids.
You're kidnapping facts. But I know that when I was first expecting, that was something that was very concerning for her. She was worried because they hadn't known Robert for that long too. So I kind of dropped the doozy on that because it was like I
No.
started bringing him
Robert,
around.
and I'm pregnant. Thank you.
I just started bringing him around, even though we had been dating
And
for
told
a
him
little
his
time.
name.
Listen, look, I didn't tell him that. We talked about that already. Did not tell you I ain't tell him his
But
name.
y'all didn't tell him his name by the time you got pregnant?
No, they met him. So it's a weird fact. Robert's name is the same name as my mother's father's name. Same. So first and middle name. So Robert Lee, and that is my grandfather's name. Now my mom has some reserved feelings about her dad. So I was afraid to tell her what Robert's name was because I was gonna be like, she's gonna freak out when she hear what his name is. So I kept him hidden for like a year and a half. Okay, we was dating. I would not bring him home, and my mom was like, "What's wrong? Why won't you bring him home? I know you're spending time with this person. What?" I was like, "Well, no, I'm not. I'll bring him home when it's time. Like when I'm ready to bring him home, I'll bring him home." And I finally brought him home, and she was like, "Well, what is your name?" And so he told her his first name, and then she said, "Wait a minute, what is your middle name?" And I was like, "Don't say it."
Who does
I
that? Who's like,
pressed him
what's your middle
because she knew it in her spirit, her and my auntie. And I was like, "Don't say it." I told her, I prepped him. I said, if they ask you your middle name, try to
It's
deflect.
Charles.
Deflect. We'll cross that bridge. And as soon as he said what his name was, they went in. I knew it. And so he was like, did I do something wrong? I said, it's just a weird coincidence. And then he also almost has the same birthday as my grandmother, who was married to my grandfather. It's just a whole bunch of weird coincidences, right? But my mom and dad didn't really know him very, very like tough before I got pregnant. And whenever my dad tells a story about me getting pregnant, because I went down for New Year's in 2006 because he couldn't come home. I was like, I'm gonna go so he's not spending New Year's by himself. Like I'm in love. I have to be with him, and I'm going down here to spend New Year's because he was in Carbondale. And my dad was like, now listen, I don't want you to go because I'm afraid you're gonna come back different. And I was like, different? What do you mean different? Different. You know what I mean, but different. And I was like, I don't know what you mean, but I'm going.
What do you mean by different?
I was like, but I'm going. That's what he meant. And I did come back different.
Daddies be knowing.
I did. I actually came back pregnant.
Because he spoke it into existence. Thanks for Mariah Pops.
Listen. So my mom and my father were kind of like, we don't know him. Like, is he gonna be there? And I was like, yes, he's gonna be there. He's this. Yes, I wouldn't even want to be in this situation if I didn't think that he was in this. And he's like, gun ho, we having this baby. He's like, we're doing this. Even when I was scared, he was like, nope, we are doing this. And my mom was so worried that he was just gonna disappear. And we had so many arguments where I was like, he's not. I know him. He's not like that. And now to this day, hell, she'll call a man before she called me. And she be like, yeah, I talked to mom today. Really? I ain't talked to her today.
I haven't spoken to her.
I haven't talked to her today. Be like, hey, you late coming home? Everything okay? Yeah, I stopped by the house because mom need. What? Wait, that she did. I was like, you didn't tell me you was gonna need my husband. I don't have to tell you I need to talk to my son. I'd be like,
okay.
Look, ain't that some stuff? You see how they be doing the flip flop? The flip flopping. You know.
See, I think that's the thing about parenting. It's like we have to realize that our children and I think this would aid in diminishing a lot of the trauma. Our children are not ours. They do not solely belong to us. We do not have be all end all rights and reign over them. They are their own people who come here, who we are just blessed with the opportunity to help guide and nourish, and then we let them go. And so within that, knowing that and thinking of it that way, we'll let them speak. We'll let them make their own decisions. We'll actively train and teach them the things that they need to know. Because another part it's not just what they pick up from us that causes trauma with them. It's what they don't pick up from us that causes trauma as well. The things that we just don't prepare them for, and then they get out into life and I was gonna say something. It's a show. Like, you know what I'm saying? When we don't prepare them.
Because we've been trying to keep the shows to an hour, but this is a really good topic, and you just brought up a really good point that I kind of wanted to get into today. So we're gonna briefly touch this, and then if I don't feel like we sufficiently cross this bridge, because I really am passionate about this conversation, especially we'll revisit it next week. I was having a conversation with a friend about them still feeling like their parents did not equip them adequately for adulthood. And there was
I just think of Bridgerton.
You don't get me started on the Bridgerton. Okay.
That girl was not
I have so many feelings about Bridgerton.
Wasn't ready.
Well, I got so many feelings about Bridgerton on so many levels, but we'll cross that bridge at a different day. And my stance on it was, yeah, they probably fell short on this, as a lot of our parents fell short on certain things. And I know as a parent, there is so much that you're trying to instill in your kids. And you think about 18 years, right? You're like, I got 18 years to try and mold this human being, right? But time flies like a mother lover, okay? And 18 years is very short when you're trying to mold a human being. And so we try our best as parents to fit in as much as we can, but there are just some things that we're not going to be able to significantly like guide you on and teach you as a kid. But then that's why as an adult, when you realize that they're important, you have to kind of go the extra mile and kind of push yourself to learn these things. And I felt like I wanted this person to just let go of what they felt like their parents didn't give, and understand that, well, you know now that you need those things. What are you going to do now to take over your life and acquire those skills for yourself?
We can't just keep blaming other people, just like we can't keep blaming the system. Like, you know, at a certain point, once you know, you got to shift you.
Right.
And how you react to things. And I think one thing that's really important when it comes to that is that we also have to understand in the process of healing from these traumas is, okay, we can be upset with our parents for not teaching us, but we also have to understand that they can't teach what they don't know. A lot of the parents don't know what to teach you. A lot of the parents were kind of just set in the corner or told to do this and that, and they didn't get the information from their parents because their parents didn't know to pass it down. So
we made a request here. Hold on, sorry, sis. I hear you, Ambi. First and foremost, I have to say this really quickly. I want to let Amber know and the rest of the world that my girl is a warrior. She has recently beat breast cancer.
Hey! Congratulations!
She has. And she is doing it all while having a smile on her face, all while still trying to persevere, even though there was a lot of uncertainty and fear. My boo was like, I'm gonna kick cancer's ass, and she did. So I am happy because she's still recovering, but she's on here with we gonna talk.
Thank you for being here, sis.
Thank you for being here, sis. And if my sis say she needs another hour, then we're gonna have to make this another hour.
Oh, she said
we gonna need another hour.
She like, you good?
We gonna need another hour, but there was no way I wasn't going to mention that. And then I do want to do a show where we are addressing survivorship, because that in itself has some generational things that we pass down, good and bad. So I definitely hope if she's up for it, she'll be on here. But I am so proud of you, Amber. So proud. She out here like, what cancer? What?
Where?
I'm finna live this life. I'm finna live this life. So we are so proud of you. Robert said, proud of you, Amber. We are so proud. So proud. So proud. And I'm glad that she's up and moving and she's, feeling better. It's only up from here. So I just had to throw that out there. But carry on, sis.
Hey, no, that is a good interruption. That's a praise break. That's a praise break. What a music.
I mean, because she hurt my soul when she called me and told me. I was just like, okay, say what now? Okay, you know what? Well, it's going, and I'm the friend that's like, we're going to beat this. It's going to be all. But I cried when she got off the phone. I was like, oh, Lord, okay, let me pray, because, it's scary. But she absolutely went out here and kicked cancer's ass. And I'm just I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
I'm upset. Very proud of her. Very happy and thankful for her and her recovery, and it's only up from here. So I had to throw that in there. And now I got Quita on here. Her husband is still in the battle with cancer, and he gonna kick that ass too.
You got it.
That's that.
Everybody out there suffering or fighting, y'all got it. Y'all got this. We're stronger than we think. The power is in our mind. If we believe we can and we follow through with all the actions we need to take, we got this. Y'all got this.
Y'all got this. Well, since we're going to have to do another hour, so it's been spoken.
It's been requested.
I mean, it's been requested.
I'm present, sis. If you down,
I'm down. I got to give the people what they ask for.
What they want.
They rocking with us. So we will continue this conversation next week on addressing childhood trauma. And we're going to talk about some ways to move forward. I think that's definitely something I want to try and spend more time on when we're having these conversations. It's not enough for us to state the obvious. We know we got a problem, but we need to also provide solutions. So we'll talk about little things that we could do moving forward to try and break the cycle of our adult trauma, our childhood trauma, and transitioning that into our adulthood, because we deserve better. And, we're not going to get there if we don't deal with all the things that we're suffering from. So we will address ways to cope, ways to move forward, ways to progress, and to break the chains of that generational cycle. So any closing thoughts before we hop off on here, sis? What you got?
Yes.
Y'all got this. I'm sorry, I just saw that. Yes, you do.
Hey.
Yes, you do. You got it.
Absolutely.
Big
facts. It's already done.
It's
already done. All the energy is being sent out there for everyone, anybody, everybody who is going through something. Whether it might just be mental, it may be physical, it may be ailments. Y'all got this. Y'all got it. It's the era of healing.
I see you. He said, make sure I shoot him a reminder message so he can make sure he's on time. If you don't hop on with us at 8, you can always find the videos on my page, on We Gon Talk page as well. And I also will be more diligent with getting the flyers out there in enough time so people can plan accordingly. But we're here every Wednesday, 8 p.m. unless weird stuff happens. Sometimes weird stuff in life happens. But we still gonna be here at 8 o'clock.
Be around 8-ish.
8-ish. We've been on CPT lately, but we gonna work on that. We gonna work.
We gonna work.
And yes, ways to forgive our parents for not equipping us. We will address that next week.
That could be a whole hour.
That's a whole hour, because I'm working on that every single day. Listen. I think
talk. Parenting our inner selves is one way that we can heal once we realize what those traumas are. First, we have to sit still enough to realize the traumas. That's what I want to leave people with. Learn you. A lot of times we are just real grown out here just existing and being traumatic, throwing trauma on other people, and we don't slow down enough to go, hold on. All right, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel the way I feel? And this is emotional literacy, y'all. Social emotional learning and literacy. We have to
And you
figure
know
out
how
what's
I feel
going
about
on.
that.
I know how you feel. That's your girl. We got to figure out what's going on with us so that we can fix those problems and then actively work towards our healing. Forgive our parents because a lot of the times they did the best that they could and they couldn't give us what they didn't have or what they didn't know. We just have to make sure that breaking generational curses, which is what we're all about here at We Gon Talk, we have to shift and create the difference for our future children. And even if they're not our children, for our nieces, for our nephews, for our younger siblings, for our cousins, whomever we have reached to start breaking those generational curses, to start preparing them, giving them the knowledge that we didn't get. And honestly, that is what we're trying to do with the Healing Academy in a school setting where from pre-K to 12th grade, we're not just teaching you reading, writing, math, and science. We're teaching you how to be a full human being, how to figure out why you feel the way you feel, how to interact with other people and their emotions, how to like really be a full person and teach you life skills as well, from budgeting and everything else you're gonna need to know that you probably didn't get from your parents.
Because a lot of our parents didn't talk about that to
Because a
us.
lot of them didn't
And
know.
they didn't know, and they were figuring it out on their time also. So it's kind of hard to teach when you're trying to learn yourself and you in the learning curve. So, just piggyback off of the forgive your parents. I want us to realize that it's not about us. I think that sometimes we internalize a lot of where our parents fell short, and we take that to mean worthiness as a human being. I know from experience, but it's not about us. When we talk next week about forgiving our parents for when they've fallen short and they didn't equip us with certain things, or for those parents that didn't show up, that was how I forgave my biological father. Was knowing that him not being there had nothing to do with me. It wasn't because I wasn't worthy. It wasn't because I wasn't special. It wasn't because in his own way he may have even loved me in his own way, and it wasn't about me. And so I was able to let it go far beyond my years. Like most people spend years and years getting adulthood and still struggle with that. I have zero resentment for him not being there at this point. I understand that there may have been other challenges or other things, and I don't internalize it anymore. So we'll talk about coming to that realization, and I'm still working on that
That's
with the
the full
stuff.
agreement, sis.
Listen, had nothing to do with me.
That ain't
Had
my
nothing
bad.
to do with me. And just to piggyback off again, we do the best we can. I feel like as a mother, excuse me, I am trying to be better than my parents were. But in some cases, I still fall right in line with the things that they did without even realizing it. So there are undoubtedly things that my kids are going to have to heal from in their childhood. My goal is to make them as minimum as possible. I want them to have the smallest amount of things to heal from. I'm
And
imperfect, so I'm gonna
if
mess
they're
up.
going to have to heal, because they will, because life is traumatic in general, give them the tools to do so.
Give them the tools to do that. They go to therapy every week faithfully. I don't play. They don't play. They be like, hey, it's time for therapy, so normalizing therapy. But we will get all into that next week. We're going to continue the conversation because it seems like people really, want to hear more. And I want to encourage you guys to throw some questions out there too. If you all have specific questions or just want some guidance or encouragement on how to deal with something from your childhood that you're still dealing with in adulthood, throw them out here. That's what we do here. We gonna talk. We want y'all to be involved. We want y'all to talk. And if you
Interactive.
look interactive, and if you actually want to be on screen with us and you want to talk and share your experiences and combat with us, or hopefully it's not combative, but just conversate. I'll say that. Feel free to email me. Feel free to shoot me a message on Messenger. We love to have guests on the show. We want to hear from you. That's what the whole platform is about, us talking and having a
We gonna
conversation.
talk.
Real people having real conversations. That's what we want to do. We're trying to fix ourselves. We're trying to heal. It's bigger than just financial. We have to heal within too. So we will see you all next week. Y'all be safe. Y'all live life. And thank y'all for rocking with us
Beautiful.
tonight.
Y'all is talented.
You is
Y'all
smart.
listen.
You is important.
You is important.
Happy
And
Black
oh, one
History.
last word,
Oh,
y'all.
go ahead.
For parents and people, grown folks interacting with children and trying not to leave them in trauma, know that they are people and know that they have feelings. That's the easiest way to stop being traumatic or lessen the traumatic experience you can give to children, because a lot of times we just think of them as being things that are there, obstacles in our way or whatever from what we have going on. We got to step outside of ourselves for a second and realize that they are their own little selves trying to figure out this existence. And so we have to help them understand and we have to help them flourish because they have feelings and emotions and wants and needs just like we do.
Facts. Absolutely. Well, thank y'all for joining us. Go ahead, get some rest. We still got 2 more days to the end of the week out here. So go out here and get your best sleep because we old. I
Get your
really
best sleep.
get your best sleep. Sis, I had a very trying conversation last night. I had to try to explain to someone about payphone. Oh, wait, you know what a payphone
About payphone?
you know what a payphone is, right? You've used the
Yeah,
payphone before.
I'm pretty.
Okay, I had to
aware
check
of
because
payphones.
my nail tech blew my mind last night.
Girl, who
Talking,
this baby? It's not about she don't know what a payphone is.
she was excited because she saw one in real life. Like she was like, I saw one
Oh,
in
got
real
you,
life.
got you.
And she was like, but
She's
how do
like,
you
they
even
do
use
exist.
it? Girl, she asked me how to use the payphone. And I was like,
Put your money in there. Your dad look what.
but I was telling her when you pick the
Back in the
receiver
day, it was
component.
operators, so you had to tell them who you wanted to call.
No, you did nothing. Girl, how old you think I am?
I'm not saying that was your payphone. I was saying back in the day,
No.
that's how it was.
Like you done took it back to Alexander Graham Bell. I cannot. I am not that old.
I didn't say that was your payphone. I'm just saying the history of payphone.
No, we had a dial tone. We didn't have to, unless we called the operator or 411. We didn't have to talk to nobody other than the person we was trying to reach.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying the history
You
of
not hurt
payphone.
my feelings. Talking about some, you used to have to call the operator. You don't take it back to the 19.
I took it back, but that was the first like form of payphone, other than Telegram.
No, we picked it up and we listened for the dial tone, which is what I told her, and she was like, "What is a dial tone?" And I was like, "Oh, heaven."
She didn't even have a landline.
No, girl. She was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, wait a minute. How old are you? 20 something?" She said, "I'm 24. I was born in 97."
I still got a house phone. I mean,
Well, she don't. Everybody have cell phones.
she talking about what's a dial tone.
Girl, she said, "What is a dial tone?" I said, "Wait,
Technology be moving, don't
she
it?
said, "What is a dial tone?" I had
Babies don't even know what CDs are. Ask one of these kids what a CD is.
Oh, girl,
Let
I found
alone
hold on. I found
a
my
VHS
escape.
tape.
I found my
Cassette
escape
player.
tape. I found my escape cassette tape, and I was showing to the kids, and they were like, "It's real music on there." I was like, "Yes, damn it, it's real." Like, I need to find a cassette player. I can't find a cassette player. No place.
Well,
Yes,
like eBay or one of them vintage shops.
girl, they
It's
had
vintage
it's
now.
really music on there. Like, yes, there's music on there. How does it work?
Girl, don't show them an MP3 player. They ain't even gonna know what that is.
I literally cannot. Like, my whole soul was hurt last night, and I was literally trying to
That
explain
sounds
to her.
what's a down tone?
I said, "Okay, it sounds kind of like," and she was like, and so then I started Googling trying to find it, but no,
That's just sounded out.
girl, I was so outdone. I was like, this baby has never heard a dial tone.
Yo.
So
Educate the masses. I'm gonna open
No,
up a
I don't-
99s and the 2000s.
I don't ever want to have to
museum.
educate anybody on that again. I didn't like how old it made me feel. I'm traumatized. We talking about adulthood trauma. That is it. Talk about some what is it?
Come on, Sante, let's open the museum. It's gonna be 70s, from 70s to the early 2000s museum. It
My
just had
mama
all
still
the
got an
archives
8-track.
and
That
stuff.
might be a plan.
Let's do it, sis.
She still got her 8-track. She still got her vinyl. She still got all her records. That
Well,
might
y'all
be-
heard it here first. Don't nobody steal our idea.
it's copyrighted now because
Right, y'all heard it here first, okay?
Quita
And we
said,
gonna
"Well,
make
my
it like
dad,
a
he had
selfie
two-way
museum.
pages." Yes, the two-way pages. Yes.
Y'all remember them phones that used to flip around?
Yes, that's
The sidekicks. Not two-way
the
pages was like
sidekick.
the
I had
granddaddy
a sidekick.
to the sidekick. That's like
And they had
grandpa's
the
sidekick.
keyboard. Yeah, we
Mhm.
done come a long way.
And baby, flip phones. When you had you a flip phone from a
Girl.
brick, you thought you was winning.
I didn't get my first email address until I was like a freshman, sophomore in high school. And then I did the dummy. And don't laugh at me, y'all. My
What
email
you had,
address.
Black Planet?
No, my look, I'm a god. So my email address was Tig Old Biddies. I know. Don't I said don't do it. That was my email address. It was a dare to make that my email address. And at the time, once you made your one email, that's all you got.
Backup? You ain't
No, because at that time you had one email. It was a
that's all you
Yahoo.
got.
It was tigoldbiddies@yahoo.com. Sad. I know.
You
Childish.
still got it? You log in every once in a while, check your email.
Girl, look, I can't remember the password I used last week. I reset passwords every other day. It's horrible. I have them written down and I still be like, this ain't the password. Did I change it? Like, what? Did I put it down wrong? Like, so ain't no way I'm getting in that email. That is lost forever. It needs to be lost in the past.
Tidobitties@yahoo.com.
Tigo.
If y'all ever come across tidobitties@yahoo.com, y'all know who it is.
Tigo Biddies. Sad. The sadness. I should have known better, but no one stopped me. We gonna get off here, y'all. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. Dion just joined us. Hey, Dion. She
Where you all late? I
said,
talked about you and everything.
she said she gonna email me that. Dion, I ain't gonna get it.
Right. It won't be received.
Won't be receiving those in emails. All right, y'all. Good night. See y'all next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. All right, y'all. Love you.